Howdy, I'm Bryce with Drifters, and today we're going to talk about 5 steps to take a good rifle and make it a great rifle. So the first step we've got to have a good rifle. This gun we have right here is a Savage Mark II FVSR. It's a 22. Has a 16.5-inch fluted barrel. It's threaded, so it's suppressor ready. It also comes with a Picatinny rail, oversized bolt knob. Has the Accu-Trigger that Savage has become known for. It is just one of the best out of the box 22s you can get for the money. They retail anywhere from $230 to $300 depending on where you're shopping. And in our opinion, it's one of the best 22s you can get. So we're going to talk about what we got to do to take this from being a good gun to a great gun. The second step we're going to address is going to be the action. And so we're going to take a few minutes and go through the process of getting this action to feel good. It's a little bit gritty, and there's quite a bit of friction, on some of these areas here. And then also when you go to close it, there's quite a bit of friction against the bolt here. And by the time we're done, we're going to have this feeling glass smooth. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing we need to do is we're going to remove the bolt. These bolts come out, we pull the trigger and pull that straight back. You can tell the bolt itself, it's got some junk on it. It's going to be, there's a lot there that's going to cause some friction. And then the action as well, we're going to need to kind of polish up. So we'll start off with the bolt. Get some paper towels. The first thing I'm going to do is just wipe it down. These things come with a fair amount of grease and oil out of the factory. And so we just kind of wipe it down and see what we have to deal with. Once I've done that, I actually take steel wool and I polish the bolt itself. When they go through and do their coating on these, there's just loads of friction there. It does protect the gun from the weather, but it also creates a lot of friction. Okay, so now we've gone through and kind of polished that up a little bit. It is quite a bit smoother. You notice it didn't remove the finish, it just kind of smoothed it off. Okay, so we're going to set that down for just a second. Then we're going to look at the action itself, the receiver here, and it's got quite a bit of junk inside of it. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we can look as this bolt is moving back and forth inside the action. We're going to slide this in. The places where we start having friction are along this surface, this channel where the bolt slides, and then right here, this little slope where the bolt goes down to go into battery. Right there. And so those are the surfaces that now we're going to go through and kind of polish to see if we can make this smooth just a little bit more freely. And to do that, there's a couple of different ways you can go about it. Files take off a lot of material and they're not the smoothest. This is just a medium fine grit sharpening stone, and it allows me to kind of get in here on these surfaces without taking off too much material or leaving gouges and scratches. Now this is all stuff that will happen naturally also as you have the gun and shoot it. We're just trying to speed that process up just a little bit to make the gun a little more fun to shoot right off the bat. Okay. Now we're going to put this back in just to see how things are feeling. It's already moving so much better. Now we're still just a little bit tight right along that point. Yeah, we can go through it really long, make sure it feels nice and smooth. Tons better now.
As you're going through, just kind of be talking about what you're thinking in your head.
So now we've got this smoothed up quite a bit. We've worked that bevel where the hammer's going along, and that's feeling a whole lot more smooth. We don't have that nearly as much friction, but it is rubbing on the inside of the bolt. So we're gonna, the bolt knob, we're gonna take, and we're just gonna polish this just a little bit too. You can actually see where that surface that we've been polishing has been grinding against this as well. So we're just gonna kind of smooth that up also. So we're just gonna do. So we can see here that we have this little groove where that was starting to grind against it. If I can remove friction, like surfaces that are going to cause friction, then that's going to make this bolt smoother. So we've already softened the inside of the action. We're going to kind of mate that so that it's going to be soft as well. So we're just going to work our way along those things. And that's going to make this whole process just a little bit smoother when we go to cycle that action. And that's looking a ton better now. Okay, so we're going to take that, try putting that in. It's still feeling just a little bit tight. There is some spring tension here where the bolt itself cocks, and that's another area that if we start feeling ambitious, we can go through and try and smooth that up as well. So that's another spot where there is tension and where there can be a little bit of friction. This part I just kind of let wear in naturally typically, and then I'll lubricate it as well. And that bolt's starting to feel really good. You'll notice it's really smooth, free, and that's without lubricating it. So now we're going to introduce a little bit of oil and see what this starts to feel like. We're going to get a fresh paper towel. We really like to use Slip 2000 lube. This stuff works awesome. It doesn't get gummy in the cold or extreme temperatures. It just works really well. It lasts a long time, and it's just awesome stuff. Look how nasty that is. So we'll go through, we'll kind of wipe that down, and then we're going to lubricate it again once we've kind of cleaned it up just a little bit. We got to give a little shout out to Phil, our esteemed colleague and associate in this great company. He was taking this same gun and shooting groundhogs at 210 yards with a 22. Like I say, these guns just perform, and it doesn't take a whole lot to make them function like a rifle that costs several times what you'd pay for this one. Okay, that's nice. Smooth. Set that there. Now we're going to put just a little bit of oil on the action itself. That's going to let us get in there a little bit better. We're just going to apply a light layer of this oil to the inside here. Okay. And now we're going to try that again. Really good. That bolt moves nice, freely, and it's going to be sweet. Okay, so that is going to do that for working the bolt over. The next thing we're going to check, step 2, is the trigger. We want to make sure that this trigger is good. So first, we check chamber's clear. We're just going to feel for creep. I'm more concerned about creep. These AccuTriggers are adjustable. We can change the weight if we need to. I really need to know if there's creep. Now, oftentimes people mistake this first bit of take-up for creep. That's not creep. When we get ready to pull that trigger, notice the trigger break nice and clean. So the trigger didn't travel any further than it took to make the gun go off. If there was going to be creep, there would be a distance before the trigger breaks. So that feels really good. I'm going to get the trigger scale here. We're going to actually test what the poundage is on that trigger pull. I've got a Lyman digital scale here that we're going to use. These are worth their weight in gold. If you're going to be working on triggers at all, if you work on rifles, and you're, especially if you're shooting matches and there were guidelines and rules about how heavy or how light your trigger can be, this will save your butt. You can test the pull. It'll also keep an average of multiple pulls so that you can tell what your trigger pull average is actually going to come out to be. There we go. Okay. Take this. I'm going to cock it. £1 pound, 14 ounces, so we're just a hair under 2 pounds. I'm going to try it one more time. £1 pound, 14 ounces. We're going to go one more time. Make sure it's staying the same. £1 pound, 12.5 ounces. So this trigger is pretty darn consistent. It's light. It's on the lighter side of things. It's right where I like it. I do like a lighter trigger on the target rifle. They are adjustable, so if you do have concerns, if you want to make the trigger heavier or lighten it up, you can do that. And I have seen them come at different poundages from the factory. So that's just one of those things with Savage. You do want to kind of check what that trigger pull is going to be. But yeah, so we've got the action, the trigger, and the next thing we're going to look at, the stock. So we have found the weakest link on these Savage rifles is their stock. They're great guns, but unfortunately, the stock just does not feel very good. So we have found that Boyd's carries a stock called the Pro Varmint for this rifle, and they are absolutely awesome. And so we're going to swap this out for a Boyd's Pro Varmint stock. Alright, we're going to find our Allen wrench here. We got to start by taking this bottom plate off. Now the Boyd's stocks don't normally ship with the bottom plate and the trigger guard, and you do need that to be able to swap those over. So when you go to place an order for that stock, just make sure you include that hardware. Okay, so we're going to just remove this stock from the action. We'll set that over there. And now we have our barreled action. I'm going to take and just wipe it down before we put the new stock on. Now if you did decide to adjust the trigger, these guns do ship with a tool to do that. And that is done by simply inserting the tool up inside this spring and twisting it until you get the desired spring tension, and that will change your trigger pull weight. We're going to just go through and wipe this down. There we are. And the Boyd stock. So this is the Pro Hunter, or sorry, the Pro Varmint, the Boyd's Pro Varmint. They do come in different finishes. It's a laminate stock, so you can either get the textured paint, or they also come in all kinds of wild colors. If you want to hunt zombies, they have a zombie green stock. You can do just about anything you want, and they are just great stocks. I'm just going to set that down in the stock there. Looks good. Okay. We're going to take this, and we need our hardware kit. So this is the hardware kit. Has your trigger guard and the magazine plate. Okay. Is that in? That. Yeah. You don't want to over tight this screw for the action where it mounts it to the stock. That can kind of mess with accuracy. If you do have issues with accuracy after you get that put on, sometimes it's not a bad idea to kind of fiddle around with a little bit, and you can kind of do some troubleshooting that way, experimenting with different tensions. And there is the Boyd's Pro Varmint stock on that Savage Mark II. It's already starting to look like a different gun. And these really are sweet stocks. They raise the comb so it's easier to see through a scope, which leads us to step 4. And it's just a great setup. It will make you shoot this gun better. They work really well. So step 4 is we need a scope on this thing so we can shoot it. So we have the Vortex Diamondback Tactical. This is the 4 to 12 by 40. These are just a great scope. They work great on a hunting rifle. They're lightweight. They're awesome on a rimfire because it allows you to be able to dial your shots. It allows you to practice precision shooting, and they just don't cost that much money. You can get one usually for under $300. So we're going to pull this out of the box here. So that's the Diamondback Tactical Scope. We've got our turrets on here. They're just a slick scope to set up. It's a 1-inch tube, so we have some 1-inch rings. These are the Vortex Hunter rings. They're low mount rings. That'll keep the scope down close to the barrel. The first thing we're going to want to do when we go to set this up, we need to actually level the gun. That way we're going to know that our crosshairs are going to be level and square with the gun. So the way we do that, this is a Wheeler Engineering leveling kit. They work really quite well. So we're going to make sure that gun's level. Sometimes I'll check it like a couple different places along the action. Yeah, we're looking good. Okay. And then we take this other piece and we're going to set it up along the barrel. we're going to match that up so that that's level as well. And that gives us our reference for setting up the scope. Okay. And that looks good. So now we can take our rings, and these are fairly inexpensive rings. These run you know, between $20 and $30 at your local sporting goods store. They're just handy rings. There's nothing special about them. They're kind of on the cheaper side, but they're good for being on the cheaper side. I'm actually going to change the direction of this rifle here real quick while we do this. Make sure that's level again. Okay, bubble level shows us that we're good. Now we're going to take this. And when I put these on at first, I just kind of finger tighten them because we may need to change the spacing on our rings once we get that scope on and we start looking through it. So we're going to take the top of the ring off. Got that. We're going to set our scope. There we go. That sits really nice and low to the action. Now we're going to check our eye relief. We'll make sure that we have enough room to be able to see through that scope. And that feels pretty darn good. What happens is some scopes have different distance of eye relief than others, and if you have the scope too close to you, especially if you're shooting a big bore gun, you're going to get whacked in the face. And sometimes you can't get a scope far enough away to be able to see clearly through it. And so this kind of tells me that I'm going to be able to see through that scope now just fine. I'm going to set this back. Okay. So now that I know that this is where they need to be, we can go ahead and torque those down. The Vortex rings, you always want to make sure that you're checking that we're torquing these down to the proper tension. We need to be 25 to 30 inch-pounds. So I have a torque wrench here. This is the Vortex torque wrench. It's a great wrench. They're really quite handy and they work really well. And I know some of you are wondering, is Vortex paying me to do all this crap? And they're not. I wish they were. But they just make a great product. And you know, I'm more than happy to be showing off what they have. They're awesome to work with. And we're happy to be using their stuff. So we're going to set this to 25 pounds. Little torque wrench here that tells us 25 pounds. And then we're going to take and torque this down. Uh-oh, that's not going to quite fit in that. I might need to use a different bit. There we go. Set that down. Torque wrench pops right there, so that tells us that we're right where we need to be. We'll get this one. Okay, and there we are. So we're 25 pounds. I'm going to put that scope back on. And then we're just gonna put the top rings on just to kind of keep things in place. We'll reset the eye relief on this, and then we can torque down the rings. Okay, so now we've got that. We're going to go back, make sure our eye relief is good. And that feels really good to me. Set this, make sure we're level. Okay, that looks good. Now we're going to take this other level, we're going to set it on that scope, and we're going to double check to make sure everything looks right. Okay. Now we're gonna see what we need to have. The scope rings need to be torqued down to 15 inch-pounds, and so we will we'll get this set up and then get that done. And we also want to try and keep the spacing fairly even between each side of the rings. As I'm kind of torquing these down, I keep checking that level to make sure that that doesn't move on us. Okay. And now make sure that's the right bit. We're going to reset our torque wrench down to 15. So we've got 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 right there. Okay, that's 15 and 15. And it looks like our spacing's fairly even. Everything looks good there. So we are all set. We have got our scope on the gun. Okay. So we have now taken an inexpensive good rifle and turned it into an inexpensive great rifle. We've gone through, we've double checked the action on it. We've got our Savage Mark II FVSR. We've smoothed up the action, see how nice and smooth that comes open. We have changed the stock out. We've double checked the trigger poundage. We have put our scope on. We've leveled it. Now all that's left to do is to bore sight it and take it out and shoot the snot out of it. These guns are just awesome. Really looking forward to getting out and playing with it. Thanks so much for watching. Message us if you have any questions about anything. We're always happy to help you in your builds. If you need suggestions, if you're looking for other product ideas, give us a call. Also, if you need us to help you do it, we're more than happy to do that for you as well. Yeah, enjoy.
That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you made it this far, hit that thumbs up button because that really helps us out a lot and lets us know that you enjoy the content we made. And if you made it this far, it probably wasn't too bad. If you want more of this awesome content, hit the subscribe button right here, or check out one of our other videos. It'll be sure to bring a smile to your face.